What is happening, everybody? Thanks so much for hanging with us for this awesome discussion that we are about to have today. We're so excited to share it with you as we dig into the age-old question of what even is queer enough? What does it look like to be queer in the workplace, in our personal lives? How have we been impacted by erasure and stigma and over-sexualization, as well as what resources have we found for building community, positive experiences that we've had, and how we can empower allies to support us in the workplace and in our personal lives as well. We're so excited to have this discussion and to be part of your what I'm sure has been an absolutely epic out and equal experience so far. And my name is Megs Pulvermacher. My pronouns are she, her. I am a white, cis, queer woman, and I am the moderator of the panel for today, which I am absolutely excited to do. It's one of my favorite things to do. And because I'm so excited about it, I am sporting my favorite electric teal buffalo plaid flannel because fall is here, baby, and I am into it. I have short hair. I am wearing my podcast headphones, and I got my podcast mic in the frame as well, which just really gets me in the zone to facilitate some really awesome discussions, which is something that I do quite frequently because I'm a speaker. I'm also a podcaster, and I would call myself overarchingly passionate about building community, particularly within the LGBTQ plus community. And so this opportunity makes for pretty much the perfect storm for me. I'm super, super excited to be here with you all. Like I said, I host a podcast. It's called Out What Now? It's all about navigating the ups and downs of the coming out journey while having as much fun as possible, which you might be able to tell. Fun is one of my favorite things. I throw it into everything I do, and this discussion will be no different. I'm also the creator of the Queer Impact Collective, which is an international online community of queer identifying entrepreneurs, creatives, and change makers dedicated to amplifying queer voices and empowering queer missions. So today, like I said, I will be moderating this panel, and we're going to try to get to the bottom of that question of what even is queer enough, because we have so much policing and questioning and gatekeeping that goes on within the queer community with allies and maybe colleagues or people we're running into in all different areas of our lives. So we're going to dig into some of those questions. But before we do that, let's meet our panel. All right, let's meet the awesome humans on our panel for today. Let's start with Jessica.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jessica Rich. My pronouns are she, her. I identify as bi or bisexual. I am a cisgender female, white. I am wearing a black shirt with a rainbow #DAO sign on it. And I have curly blonde hair. I am a R&D TS&D technologist at Dow, working in leather coatings. And what is my day job, as everyone says now in Equal, is I am GLAAD's focal point for the global hub that Out and Equal launched recently. So I help all of our ERGs collaborate on there if they need to, and plug in all of our different ERG locations and keep up to date on the different resources on there.
Awesome. Thank you. Tequila.
Hello, I am Tequila Benson. She, her are my pronouns. I identify as queer and human sometimes. I am a beautiful Black woman, peanut butter color with long black locks, wearing Ankh earrings and light pink shirt. By day, I am a DEI analyst at a local insurance company. I get to work with ERGs just like Jessica. By night, my passion thing is a mystic healer and a writer. So you can check out my works, book a tarot reading, or a Reiki session at my name, tequilabenton.com.
Awesome. And Heidi.
Hi, friends. My name is Heidi Deuce. I use she, they pronouns. I identify as a cisgender, queer, white woman. I have 2 partners, 2 children under one house. I am wearing a black t-shirt that said "Visibility is Life," black cat eye glasses, red hair pulled up. By day, I am a diversity, equity, and inclusion consultant. I work with organizations on gender equity and LGBTQ plus inclusion. And my website is culturescapeconsulting.com.
All right. So happy to have you. We're going to have a good time today digging into that age-old question, what is queer enough? What does it look like in the workplace? What does it look like in our personal lives? And all of the things that go along with that, because as we know, it is extremely layered. So let's get into some convo here let's start with erasure. So there are a lot of different identities that come up for folks, and there are a lot of spaces that are traditionally considered to be more safe, particularly in the workplace. And for a number of folks in the queer community, depending on how they identify, there can be some hesitation or some pushback or some, I guess, what's a better word than erasure that comes into those spaces, particularly for bi plus identities. So for you, Jessica, why don't you start? What has your experience been in accessing and interacting in some of those spaces that might traditionally be considered safe for folks in the queer community, but might not always be?
So I would say initially, like, ERGs do seem really safe. And I would say, like, when I found one at Dow, I didn't have one at the previous job I was at, so I wasn't really out. The culture there was not great, and you could just tell by that. HR was, so at Dow, I felt like I could be safe, but at the same time, I realized I was reserved for the longest time, even though I was in my community, because I felt like the only one with my identity. I was bisexual, but I was like with a man, and then I was engaged, and everyone saw me. Then I got married, right? So I didn't have the same struggles. I didn't feel like I was looked as I was queer. It wasn't until I came actually to my first Out and Equal conference that I really felt a true safe space, because I was just surrounded by this huge community. Luckily, I have to go in 2019. It was the last one in person, but just everyone being their true selves and being able to see that. And then the bi plus talks, right? People talking about it and finding people are the same. I met someone in my company who, at the time, I had literally just got married 2 weeks before the conference, and someone who was actually at another Dow site who came was also bisexual and was engaged to a man to be married in February. So it was instantly like I found people, you know. But I think in like just the local small version of the ERG, a lot of times you kind of get the same people. You mainly get allies, and you mainly get white gay men. Honestly, that's really, really the myth. So then you kind of feel like you need to be quiet because you don't have those struggles. I don't get looks when I go in a restaurant. I don't get looks when I hold my husband's hand. So it's just one of those things. But when I got pushed into that larger group, it was magical, to be honest.
Yeah, and it really just shows the power in visibility, right? Because that's when other people feel like they can start coming out of the woodwork and showing up authentically, and like those identities that you can't see matter.
Exactly. And that's a great thing. I mean, and then the other issue though is, you know, I've been to an all ERG conference for my company where I had global people from our ERG GLAAD for the LGBTQ community, but also all 10 of Dow's ERGs. So it felt like this great place of welcoming, belonging. We talked about diversity, inclusion, right? and you think everyone's like-minded, you just want everyone to belong. You want everyone to bring their best selves to work every day and just feel that sense of community. But then when you talk to someone and you build a connection, and then they're like, oh, why are you in GLAAD? Why are you involved? And you're like, oh, well, I identify as bisexual. Like, I'm engaged to a man right now, but I identify as bisexual. And then I'm also part of it for all of my friends and my family and everybody else in the community, because I want them to feel like they belong as well. I'm like, oh, well, like I can be okay with that because you're engaged to a man. And things like that, they instantly break any sort of connection you could possibly have with a person. It instantly shuts you down. It's like a part of you is only okay because of this instance, right? And it's not okay. And it's in those communities where it's supposed to be belonging. And I think people sometimes forget that you need to use inclusive language, that you need to include everybody, not just, I'm religious, so I don't agree with this. No, despite that, we should still all care for each other and want us all to just be happy and live our lives, right?
Yeah, and it's really not necessary to police anyone, nor is it helpful or productive or improving or creating any kind of culture where people can feel welcome and productive and confident enough to just show up as their full selves.
Exactly.
Heidi or Tequila, anything you want to add on to that piece?
I definitely share the experience of folks giving you the, oh, well, you're okay when you say that you're bisexual. When I first came out, I definitely struggled with that and wanted to identify more with that. And that label didn't feel right either. And so even in explaining it to people, it was still, well, you have kids. Well, you still kind of like guys. So maybe you could be. So it's interesting how that line of questioning leads to them being okay or rejecting you still. And either way, it doesn't build an ally or trust. And people just need to recognize that, like you said, that acceptance as a person and not necessarily who they're sleeping with or attracted to is really important in building community and some belonging.
Yeah, I that's what I was going to comment on. Tequila is putting a label on it makes them feel more comfortable to know ultimately who we're sleeping with. Right. And that leads to the over-sexualization of the LGBTQ plus community. And just because I may be partnered with a man, which I have two partners, man and a woman, and right, I don't need that label. I don't need a bisexual or queer label. Now, while I identify as queer, people will then question that and say, wait, but you're with a man. So how does that work? And what does that really even matter? If this is how I'm defining my life and this is my normal, that's all that matters. I mean, everyone gets to define their own family structure, their own normal, and what might be normal and in real time, in real life to me, isn't something that somebody else would look at, or how they want to structure their family, and that's okay. And so, right, we can identify however we want, and it can be fluid. Maybe we do identify as bisexual, maybe we do identify as queer, maybe we identify as lesbian. It can change. That can all change, and it's all fluid. And what does that ultimately matter to our allies on how we show up?
Yeah. And even within the queer community, there's kind of all these different angles where there can be questions or requests to qualify or explain or educate. Have you all noticed differences between reactions or interactions that you've had between, say, an ally versus just a general colleague who is tolerant versus experiences you've had with folks who are also in the queer community?
Yeah, I actually have. I've actually experienced a couple of these actually in the last 2 weeks. where I may be speaking with somebody from the queer community and they either question the label of being queer because I'm with a man and a woman, and then automatically it leads to a question about sex. I have also noticed that there is some generational component, and I think that this comes with any kind of equity, diversity, inclusion, belonging, right? Because we're not singular identities. We're not only queer people. We're not only women. We are multifaceted, multi-layered individuals. And I think that's oftentimes, when we speak about ERGs, like, okay, we have a Pride ERG and we have a Black ERG and we have a women's leadership. Okay, well, where does that queer Black woman fit in? And as I'm doing my EDI work, those questions do come about, and we have to recognize the intersectionality that we all hold, even within the queer community, and be allies across all of those different communities. So yeah, I've noticed the generational component, even when we use the word queer. And I think sometimes as this generation, right, language evolves and language changes, and words that were unacceptable maybe 20, 30 years ago are being adopted, and words that maybe were acceptable even 20 years ago are no longer acceptable and are very triggering and trauma-filled for different individuals. And I think we just have to be really cognizant of that. And instead of really calling people out, that we're using it as a teachable moment to say, hey, language evolves, and this term is no longer used, and here is why. And this term has been taken back by this next generation and is now being used to identify, in a variety of identities that fall under the queer umbrella.
Absolutely. All of the different intersections that can come into even the decision to actually come out or disclose your identity or bring it up they all play a role from so many different angles. For you, Tequila, how did intersectionality play a role in kind of even your decision? You're recently out, right? So in your decision to come out, what were the different considerations as you went into that experience, and how that has looked since doing that?
For me, it's been honestly a huge part of my journey to heal my own trauma and my own DEI journey, and just journey to get get to a state of enlightenment and just undo all the crap that society has done. So I was talking earlier this week that this has been a serious lesson in love, pure love and love for myself, because the whole world, my whole life has taught me to hate myself, to hate the feelings I had surrounding who I'm attracted to hate my Blackness, to hate my womanhood. So coming to terms with my own healing and undoing all the things I've learned, that was a part of it, was accepting these emotions and feelings that I have outside of the male gaze, outside of the white gaze, outside of what society made it look like to be a bisexual woman, or to be a coming out late in life woman identifying as queer. Whatever it is, I had to let all that go and really dig and say, okay, who is Tequila? What do I like? What do I want? And can I stand firmly in that, no matter who is hating behind me? And so for that process, it was, undoing my brainwashing with church. So, the religious aspect of it, oh my goodness gracious. We all have that trauma, I'm sure, and the Black church is no exception. So that was a task, and how to do that and still want to be connected to my family and friends who go to church. And how do I do that with my other family members who may not necessarily feel comfortable with queer folks, but not necessarily have dug into why? It's just social conditioning. How to do it at work. Oh my goodness. Heidi and I talked about this a lot, that if I would not have been working where I was at the time, we both worked together previously at a credit union, and not had her to talk to and walk me through all these feelings of do I, don't I, can I say this to you? Can I say this to that person? Having an ERG available to find some belonging, all those things played a part in making me feel confident that I can stand confidently in myself and just be like, F you to all the haters, and answer questions with my own knowledge and research and all that. So it's definitely been integrating all those things into myself, and like really, like for real, being confident, like I am who I am. If you don't like it, keep walking.
Keep on moving.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Don't let the door hit you. Appreciate it. Yeah, it's so interesting to me. The process of coming out it so often gets branded as like this singular event or this one time, and it is just an ongoing process, because once it's kind of like breaking the seal, right? Like once you make the decision to do that, then you got a whole bunch of stuff that you're going to have that you keep dealing with, and it does get easier, but it's always something. There's always new employees. There's always, anytime you do anything new, you have to come out again. And so that is kind of an ongoing heavy aspect, I think, to the decision to do that, that makes it extra anxiety inducing to do it in the first place. So props to you, and they can keep walking. Heidi or Jessica, do you have anything to tap onto that as far as coming out at work or in personal life, or things that you had to heal as you were going through that process?
Sure. I mean, I can speak to some of it because I came out twice, the big come outs, I guess, in a sense. Because when I was in high school, I was really reserved. I got bullied all through grade school and everything else too. So I never really wanted to break the mold or really make anyone have another reason to pick on me. So like I kind of had thoughts, but I reserved them. And then I went to college, and then eventually I got to explore more. And then I was trying to figure myself out. And I thought, you know what? I never really liked guys. I was more so into women. I was just scared to come out. So then I came out as lesbian. So shocked my parents. They accepted it though. They were great. I announced it on Facebook and not to them in person. So that was a little bit of a shocker. But you know, I did date a few women, and then eventually I met my now husband. And it's just one of those things where you end up building a connection with someone, and I love him. I can't imagine a day without him. So then I came out as bisexual. Because it was just a whole journey of learning about yourself. And sometimes people come in your life and, you know, maybe you didn't really expect it. Maybe you thought you were on a different path. But, you know, it's all in figuring yourself out. And so I had to come out twice, essentially, which I think causes a little bit of confusion. Even my parents are just kind of like, well, you're married to a man, you're heterosexual now, like you're fine. I'm like, oh, not really. Like my sister knows, and like my sister knows, she's good with it and everything. So I have her, and I just don't say anything to them. It's easier. So I do, in a sense, have to hide myself, but I don't live at home, so that helps with that situation at least.
Yeah, I would say, you know, similar to Tequila, I came out late in life and have been married to cishet male for almost 20 years. And only with his empowerment, encouragement, and support did he really say, like, you only live once, and it's your this is your happiness, and I don't control your happiness, and I want you to live the best life that you can. And I think I had my own internalized homophobia because I was scared of coming out, having been married to a man, and still married to my husband, and not knowing what people were going to think, right? Because there's a whole other layer of it. And then you're like, oh, and then I start dating women, and what is this? This isn't quote unquote normal, and going back to like, who really gets to define what your normal is, and how you see yourself and how you identify and who you love is your business and no one else's business. And if you don't like it, then you don't have to be part of our lives, because this is normal to us. And the way that we are teaching others that have come into my life and are asking those questions of like, how did you come out? And how did you, how do you structure your family? And what does this look like? Oh my God, like you guys are all great. And you're all family and friends. And like my partners are best friends. But you're also then teaching your community, your friends, your children. My children are taught that families look different, and that's okay. And that family structures are made up of all different kinds of individuals and humans. And, as long as there is love and support and encouragement and empowerment, that's what makes a family. And blood doesn't have to make a family, right? We all have our chosen people and our chosen families as well. I would say for the most part, yeah, my family has been really supportive. I was kind of forced to come out because I was awarded Advocate of the Year by the Wisconsin LGBT Chamber. And at the awards ceremony, my parents showed up and I was like, oh shit. Like both my partners were there. And I'm like, then I had to like come out and say, just so you know, like I've had a partner for a year and, a female partner for a year and a half. And they're like, what? But all in all, they really handled it really well and went up, introduced themselves. All things considered, they were, thrown into the fire with me, but have since totally embraced my partner and how we live our lives, and really ultimately just want me to be happy and see that I am happy and living my truth, and that, right, what society teaches us, what the patriarchy teaches us, what monogamy and religious trauma people go through is not the norm for most people. So yeah, it's really important to like find your community and find that support system and that encouragement.
Right on. Yes. Community is everything, isn't it? I mean, I don't know how you would go on this journey successfully without finding it. Are there, just for you all, are there specific places that you've been most successful in finding community? Has it been more in the workplace or out in the community, or how have you accessed some of those types of resources that have made the process a little easier, perhaps even joyful?
Yeah,
For me, surprisingly, it's been recently, pandemic also had a play in it, but at work, my company is an insurance company, but we're super robust with our ERGs. And I fortunately get to help them out and attend the events and do all the good ERG stuff. I love it. And so finding community within those different ERGs has been really pivotal to kind of help and keep me grounded, and also figure out how to help other people navigate that process, both whether it's just DEI stuff or coming out at work stuff. It's really been a good exercise in teaching me how to moments and do it myself. My community, like Heidi said, has been chosen as well. We don't want to get around too many people. We don't want to get the Rona. So you want to be around select folks. And I would say my partner, she has honestly been a huge community support for me too, just in, again, helping me navigate through this phase of coming out and learning how to love and see people in a different way. Like I said, you make family, you make community. And I think for me also, it's been being super intentional about that more so than before, because you really have to pay attention to what people say and the nuances, because they also have these weird biases that were there before probably, but we didn't notice, at least those of us who were living the straight life, we didn't notice it because it was just the air we were breathing. And now I just kind of look at people's eyes when I hear certain comments or certain things, and it piques my interest more than it would have before. And so, those are not the folks you want to confide in or invite over to dinner. So being super intentional about wherever you make it, work, home. I don't know about church, but I'm not going to discount church. But I found a lot of community with spiritual folks as well, who, see people for the God in them, not necessarily the body that they've been born in. So yeah, just being intentional about wherever you make it has been helpful for me.
Absolutely. You got to be selective with that bubble. they got to be like-minded and they got to be cool so you don't get the Rona. Love that. Heidi or
Yeah.
Jessica?
Yeah, I would say, similarly, employee resource groups are a great resource of finding your people. And, I encourage not only, members of the LGBTQ plus community, but also allies, and really finding who is that voice that can amplify your voice if you're not having a seat at the table or if you're not being heard, because we need allies to push forward, different things that we want to accomplish within the workplace. Also, I will give another plug for Megs, because Megs has created the Queer Impact Collective, which has been seriously instrumental in my community and, getting together with other change makers and people that are making an impact, that identify as queer. And there's no policing of your queerness. We have people from all over the world who identify in all different ways, and no one is policing that. And I think that that has really created a special place for a lot of individuals to feel safe. So check out megstheconnector.com if you need a safe space to connect with awesome queer people. So I really think that the Queer Impact Collective has been instrumental to me forming community and gaining resources. I do this for a living. I teach organizations how to be more equitable and inclusive when it comes to gender and LGBTQ plus folks in the workplace. And so, but sometimes I need my own space to decompress my own shit. And, the QIC is that is that community. And it's finding, those people that you can gain support to, instead of always supporting others, which, as female identifying individuals, we have a tendency to do, is put our own care to the back burner and take care of everyone else. And I know many of us are empaths and highly sensitive people, and that just amplifies it even more. So, yeah.
Yeah. There is a lot of power in being able to have conversations and process and vent. And also, kind of like Tequila was saying, the opportunity to empower others, right? It can be really energizing to help someone who you're just a little bit further along in that journey with. There's a lot of power in that, in processing still your own stuff too, which it does make that space super, super powerful, and just creates the opportunity for us to be able to show up more boldly and authentically when we're going out there to create change, because you got to take care of yourself first.
Well, and two, you never know who you're going to impact. So you're in the workplace, and yes, we have an employee resource group, but an ally shows up, and this is, a specific situation that happened, and their children are coming out, or their child is transitioning. And this is a safe space for them to learn what to say, what not to say, how to receive that, how to show up. So it's not only what we are learning for ourselves, or, how to be inclusive in the workplace, but this stuff funnels out into our communities and, into individuals' families and lives. And I've seen the direct impact of people saying, where do I get a binder for my child who's transitioning? And this is a safe space to ask those questions, because there is no judgment. And we are truly happy to help find those resources for individuals, to make this next generation even more inclusive.
100%. Jessica, any specific ways? I know you talked earlier kind of about being a leader in creating community or being visible and those kinds of things, but how have you accessed community that's been supportive of you through this process?
I think I've collected people as I've gone, as you go through life, you find your peoples, right? And you just start slowly collecting. I always, just like Kayla said, with, intentionally networking with people and building those relationships, right? I say quality over quantity, right? I might not have this huge room full of friends, but the quality of what they bring to me, what they bring to my life is so much more than that room full of people. If I had a room full of people, they wouldn't know me. These people, they know me like the back of their hand. They know when I'm upset. They know how to cheer me up. Like I've built this community to uplift myself and them as well. Because with my group of friends, like we all know that we would be there for each other. If you call me at 1 a.m., you need something, I'm there for you. And I know if I need to do that too, you're there for me too. So I have my small knit community per se. I have larger as I go on, right? But I like to keep my really, really close community small, just because it's the quality. It's just being that close to people and having those spaces where you can just fully be open, like inside jokes that nobody else understands, right? And you feel like yourself.
Yeah. And I think it's one of those things where you don't even realize when you're having to compartmentalize your life or kind of silence different parts of yourself, depending on who you're talking to or what the situation is or how you're reading the room or whatever. You don't even realize the impact that it has on your mental health, the way you show up for yourself in your relationships, how productive you can be in your work, and all of those different pieces too. And I'm on that same line, I guess. I'm curious, if somebody is in a space where they're like, I don't know, coming out sounds kind of hard. We've got erasure. There's a lot of stigma. People are going to say weird stuff to me. I'm going to be over sexualized. This doesn't really sound that fun. But for you all, you've all come out and done the thing. Is it worth it? Is it easier to show up? And have you noticed any specific differences in how you're able to do that, having made that decision and living in that way? Tequila, anything?
Look, I'm a superhero right now, so you can't tell me nothing.
Yes.
So seriously, embracing your own darkness really makes you feel powerful AF. Like there's nothing anyone can't tell you about yourself when you have that level of confidence. And so I would definitely say it's worth it. Anybody that I lost in the process of owning my truth, they weren't for me anyways. And that's what I had to come to terms with. That was a hard thing, was the different conversations or lack of interactions or not being welcome in some spaces now. You got to be okay with that and know that you're gaining more on the other end of this transition, because it is a transition in your life, but it is definitely so worth it. And then when you meet that person, that makes your heart feel like, oh, it's worth it.
The best.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, it's like even coming out late in life, it was just this weight that was off my shoulders that I thought, going through life, I was like, well, I'm never going to be able to live this side of me because, right, what society teaches us is monogamy. And being able to be supported and empowered in the life and family that I have, it has just been life-changing. I mean, it's a life I never thought was possible. And I think as you come out, it becomes easier and easier. I mean, I remember coming out, my heart was like beating so fast. I thought that people were going to be able to see it. And I was afraid of their reaction and, breaking out in hives and like, it just becomes easier. And you find out that people aren't as judgmental as maybe you internalize. And, it also depends on where you live, because I can speak from this coming from, a more liberal city in the US, or what's deemed as a more liberal city. But I don't know. That's only my experience. And so I think it goes back to everything that we've talked about is, finding your community, whether that be online or that, those two safe people at work that you can open up to and trust. You just have to find your people.
Love that. That was me dropping my microphone because I can't drop
Nice.
this one right now. Jessica, is it worth it? Is it worth it?
Yes, it is. And it does get easier, right? And like Heidi says, like each time at first you're judging the room, you're judging the feel of everything. But eventually it does get easier. Last year, I guess in a sense came out to my whole company because they collected these ally videos essentially, or like why we need allies. And I shared a video that I had recorded probably a couple of years before that, after the Spade ERG conference, and what the LGBTQ ERG endowment meant to me. So I explained my story of not being out at my previous job, and then how Dow gave me that sense of community and told everyone I was bisexual. So I guess it does it easier. I was really nervous to hit send, but after I hit send, I realized I'm also empowering others. I actually had a leader that I knew on my site who reached out to me, and she got emotional from watching it. And, it was just one of those things where, well, at least I'm touching people, by being out, I'm able to touch somebody else. By being out, I'm able to show someone it's okay, right? The more people like us see people like us that are vocal, that are visible, right? There's going to be more of us then. They're going to feel comfortable too. They're going to understand, right? This is life. I shouldn't point at my shirt, I should point at yours, Heidi. But it's important for us to speak, for us to be out, because it makes the next generation even better.
Yes, it does. There's so much power in that. I noticed such a difference in, even after being out as a human. I've been out for a decade or whatever, a long time. And I have done, just in my experience, I've hosted 2 different podcasts. One that was kind of about mindset. Now I host one that's about the coming out journey and all of that stuff. But in my initial podcast, I never really mentioned anything about my sexuality or my relationship or my identity, none of it. And the way that I'm able to show up in the podcast that I do now, people have told me that I literally sound different in my show, the way I talk, the rate at which I speak, the amount of times I'm saying or just the way that I'm able to show up is so different, even though I was like out in life, but just being fully yourself, and like you don't have to hold anything back, and being so healed and connected with that is insanely powerful in the way that you can show up in all different facets of your life. That's just one very practical, tangible example, but it creates so much more opportunity to create that ripple effect too, which is what we're all wishing we had probably earlier in our lives. And now we have the opportunity to be, which is why conversations like this are so incredibly important. So to kind of put a bow on this awesome conversation with all of you awesome folks, I want to ask you each one of my favorite questions. I end every podcast episode this way, so we're going to carry it right into Out and Equal. If I were to purchase you a billboard, and you can put any message on it that you want, it can be funny, motivational, inspirational, a picture of you. It's up to you. What would it say? What would your message be to the passersby? Heidi Deuce, would you like to start?
Sure. Oh, yes. I totally know what this would say.
I do too. I tried not to say it earlier.
Well, you might be thinking I probably have a couple of them, but
Wow.
my number one message, like my mantra, is if you're not uncomfortable, you're not growing.
Mm-hmm.
The other one is life is not linear. I knew you thought that.
Honey
But
Juice
yeah,
gets
life
2
is not
billboards,
linear.
I guess.
And but I guess, right, they go hand in hand. If you're not uncomfortable, you're not growing. And just know that like it's okay to like veer down a different path. And so yeah, life is not linear.
It sure isn't. It sure isn't. Walking example. Visibility is life, baby. Let's go. All right. Tequila, what would your billboard say?
I want 2 billboards. No, just kidding. First of all, my billboard needs sparkles. We need sparkles and lights, okay? And then it should say, "Ooh, labels are for products, not people."
Ooh, yes. I'm vibing with that. I want to walk directly towards that one. Do a loop around the exit and go by it again. Love it. And Jessica, what would yours say?
So mine's a little bit, I guess, more personal. I'll make mine more fun, right? I would definitely have all the glitter in the world. If it could just constantly rain glitter, that would probably be the best. A rainbow shooting over it, that'd be good too.
Yes.
But I would say, train of thought. Be yourself. Unless you can be a unicorn, then always be a unicorn.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm a huge unicorn lover. My husband hates it. He likes to hide my unicorn items.
I love that. I mean, I have a poster in my office at work that's a unicorn laying on a couch talking to what you could deduce is possibly Sigmund Freud. And it's just the unicorn getting some advice from the psychologist saying, you need to believe in yourself. Otherwise, why would anyone else? There's no, parenthetically, it needs more explanation, but it's a great poster. You can find it at Michael's, but this is not an ad. Anyway, thank you all so much for sharing your stories and your experience and your expertise today. And thank you all for watching and hanging with us. If you're wondering what my billboard would say, it would undoubtedly say, keep it queer out there, because that is just, it's the right way to do it. There's so much power in visibility. There's so much power in being yourself. And the more ourselves we can be, the more their selves we can help all of the other folks out there be as well. So that is all we have for you today. Thanks for coming. Thanks for hanging with us. And like I said, keep it queer out there.
It's a no-brainer. Everybody comes running. They want to have a little piece of me. They want to shake their hands of the queen.